This episode of The Bridge is a really personal one. My co-host and friend, Toni O'Connor, shares her story as a mom fighting for her kids' mental health. And we sit down together with Chandra Markel, a Richland School District counselor and founder of Take Strides Tri-Cities Suicide Prevention Walk. Join us. So welcome to The Bridge. We are so excited to have you join us as we have a conversation with the nonprofits and the organizations doing good out in our community. We are excited to shine a light on them and build connections and build relationships. And so welcome to our conversation. So today we get to have a personal and hard conversation about suicide and suicide prevention. My name is Krista Hill, and our co-host today is my good friend Toni O'Connor. And we get to have a conversation with Chandra Markel, a Richland School District counselor and director of the 10th annual Take Strides Suicide Prevention Walk, happening in Richland this Wednesday, September 24th at Fran Risch. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate you. First, I'm going to introduce Toni. Toni is a mom of 6 kids who has become very familiar with the effects of mental health on the lives of our teens as she fought for 2 of her children through the years of severe depression, anxiety, and chronic suicidality. Since 2023, she has been a presenter for Asking is Caring, a local advocacy group that teaches and encourages those who love our youth to have open and honest conversations with them about mental health and suicide, including asking the question, are you thinking about suicide? Toni, thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Can you share a little bit about your family's journey and how that has shaped your advocacy?
Absolutely. So my journey with mental health started in the summer of 2018 when I knew that my teenage daughter, she was 14 at the time, I knew that she had been struggling with her mental health. And one day she said, Mom, if this is what my life is going to be, I don't think I want to live it. And that was a really scary thing to hear. And so we started her in counseling. The counselor immediately said, I think she needs more. We need to try medication. And within just a couple of months, she was in an inpatient facility for self-harm, severe self-harm, and attempting suicide. And over the course of the next year, we fought tooth and nail to keep her alive as she suffered from chronic suicidality, just constant thoughts and suicidal ideation. And ultimately, she ended up in a 3-month eating disorder facility as she had decided that we had taken away all of her tools for suicide and all that was left was to starve herself to death. And it was a really, really terrifying journey. And throughout all of that, then her younger sibling, our next youngest child, who has always suffered with severe anxiety, started to suffer from suicidal ideation and had at least one attempt that I am aware of at that time. And it just became such a passion for me to help other parents and families to not feel so alone, because this is not a conversation that we have easily in the community. And when we were going through it, I felt like I was the only one who had ever dealt with that, which obviously now I know isn't true. But it felt so isolating and so scary, and I didn't know where to turn for resources. It was by far, even to this day, the most difficult year of my life, just fighting for her health and to keep her alive and to get her to the point where medication could help, where the therapy could work for her, and we could move her to the point where she was not just being kept alive, but where she wanted to survive.
So if she was your oldest,
Mm-hmm.
I know you have 6 kids.
Yes.
What were the age groups of all of your kids during that year?
So
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how a mom handles that.
She was 14. My next youngest kiddo was in 6th grade, just starting 6th grade. And then I had a 4th grader at the time, a kindergartner at the time, and then a preschooler. And my youngest was born that summer, right before all of this. So when I was traveling to facilities and treatments, and my baby and I moved to Bellevue for about a month and a half when she was finishing with residential treatment, but still needed intensive outpatient treatment in Bellevue. So we moved for a month and a half, my 10-month-old at the time, and I to Bellevue so that we could have a place that she could come home in the evenings but still receive intense treatment during the day.
Oh my goodness.
So it was rough. It was a lot. It was a lot for our family.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
How did you end up finding the facility in Bellevue?
So that's actually a really great question.
Because I wouldn't know.
Through her therapist that she was seeing at the time here in town, she referred us when it became clear that her eating disorder was an eating disorder. Because at first, you just see like little signs or whatever. She recommended that we check out the Recovery and Wellness Center in Richland, which turned out to be a fantastic facility for her as we re-entered society. But we went to a consult there, and they said they were fantastic and admitted to us that she was too severe for the services that they could provide for us, and they gave us a referral to the facility, the Eating and Recovery Center in Bellevue. And so that's when we went there, fought for a few weeks to get a bed there. That's one of the hardest parts, is finding open availability in facilities. And then they were there to help her transition back into life once we moved back into the Tri-Cities. They were there while she continued intense treatments through the Recovery and Wellness Center for about 6 to 8 weeks after we moved back to the Tri-Cities.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was a lot for a year. A year plus, because she has continued. Obviously, it's not something that just goes away.
No.
She's 21 now, and she continues to deal with mental health every day.
Does she talk openly about it yet, or does it feel like a private conversation for her still?
She's amazing, and she has always been open from the time, even while she was going through it. She was like, "Mom, share my story. Let people know that there's hope, like that they're not alone." And even so, she came back to Tri-Cities in the summer between her freshman and sophomore years, and at one of the first assemblies at Hanford her sophomore year, she shared her story.
Oh, that's great.
With students there, and said, "There's hope, there's healing, ask for help." She's been incredible at being willing to share her story, because she does not want others to feel alone or to feel hopeless.
That is the worst feeling.
It really is.
So you as a mom at that time, you were experiencing that too from a mom perspective.
Yeah.
What do you wish would have been different, or now that you know what you know now, would you have handled it different back then, or you just know what you know and you move forward?
I would have sought help sooner. I would have seen the signs sooner. That's one thing that we work with in Asking is Caring, is knowing the signs from the earliest signs. And there were things that I didn't know, things she said that I didn't know that I needed to take seriously. Little signs of I'm just not happy, things aren't going well, signs when things weren't going well with friends. Some of those things that I didn't recognize as signs of depression, because she's a joyful, happy, seemingly bright, light child.
With a beautiful smile, by the way. She has a gorgeous smile.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so looking at her, we didn't suspect, right? Nobody would have known that she was dealing with this hard depression. And so I wish that I had known the signs earlier and known to take things seriously earlier. Because there were times that I asked her, "Do we need to go to the hospital? Like, do we need to go to the doctor?" But I didn't know that I needed to ask, "Are you thinking about suicide?" until it was almost too late.
Do you know, I don't know much about the Asking is Caring. Would you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Asking is Caring, it was established a few years ago. I don't know my exact timeline, but
that's okay. This podcast is not going to court.
Through the University of Washington Smart Center, and they use evidence-based research to talk to parents about warning signs, about things to watch for in their students, and then about having the conversation. And we do a workshop. There's little booklets, and you work together with other parents and caregivers and loved ones in our workshops and practice. We help give you a script so that you can have these conversations with your kid. And then we also talk a lot about prevention, about the need to lock up medications and guns and ammunition and those kinds of things, so that we're buying time for our kids, because when they're feeling this way, it feels so immediate and urgent. And if we can buy that time where they don't know that there's a Costco-sized bottle of ibuprofen in the cupboard, then it helps us have that time to get help for them. And then we also provide them with I feel like it's a pretty extensive list of resources at the end of class that they get to take home and have at their fingertips. I've learned through doing it some amazing resources through Richland School District and different places in the community, even that I didn't know when I started presenting. So,
when your oldest was, if I'm doing the timeline right in my head, getting the ground a little more solid underneath her feet, and then to learn that your second child is also struggling with this, was there a unique relationship, understanding between your two children, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how are they both doing now?
They're doing well.
If it's okay to ask.
Yeah, no, that's fine. My second kiddo is a bit more private. They're a much more private human. They're an introverted kiddo, but they still struggle. Honestly, even up until their suicidal thoughts revolve more around anxiety. When things get really scary or anxious, then it's like, I don't want to face that, so I'd rather take my life. As opposed to, with my oldest daughter, it was a depression of I can't live like this forever. I just want the pain to end. So it's a little, they're in different
reasons,
different circumstances. And as that kiddo just graduated, right? And that's a hugely anxiety-inducing time of life. And they've struggled these past several months trying to figure out how to proceed as an adult in life.
So much pressure.
But they're on a good regimen of medication. They've got a fantastic counselor that they see, and we've been able to work through a lot with them and keep them safe.
I remember when my oldest was struggling and trying to get out, and there was just, it's such this funny paradox, because today doesn't matter, the long term matters, and yet today's the only day that matters. Both are true at the same time. And I remember he was being so hard on himself, and his decisions and his perspective was based in shame for a long time. And I just remember us having this conversation of, soon, keep the perspective, soon you will look back on this with such kind eyes. But I don't know how to open that door to that perspective when you're in your late teens and early 20s. It's a very limited perspective when you're struggling. And I wish I knew how to open that perspective up. Yeah. But I liked what you said earlier about it buys you time. I love that.
And all the time we could buy gets us that much longer to get help.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to bring in Chandra. Thank you so much for being here with us too. So Chandra is a counselor at Richland High School. She is on the mental health assistance team and flight team for the Richland School District, and she is the founder of the awesome Take Strides Suicide Prevention Walk, and this year they're celebrating their 10th year. And that is coming up, and we're just so happy to have you. And if you want to add anything else to the bio, please do. And we just want to know everything we can about your experience and what led you to get involved with the Suicide Prevention Walk.
Thanks for having me, Krista.
Yeah, so happy to have you.
From a young age, I knew I wanted to be in a profession that helped people. That's just my nature. And I've been in education for 24 years now. Started out in the Pasco School District, working with at-risk kids, kids in gangs, on drugs, broken families. Wanted to work in Pasco forever is really what I thought. But then I got my master's degree, got a position in Benton City, and realized that kids needed me no matter where they lived, what side of the bridge they were on. There was mental health issues everywhere. And so that was always just my passion, is working with kids. And when I started in the Richland School District in 2014, a group of a TV, it was a TV production class, and they came down to the counseling department and said, hey, we want to interview a counselor on suicide. And all my colleagues were kind of like, go down the hall.
They shrunk a little bit.
Yeah. Go see Chandra. We think that she likes to talk about those things. And so I said, yeah, I'm not an expert, but I'm willing to have the conversation with you. And so we went down to the TV broadcast classroom, and I just heard myself over and over again as they were asking me the questions that, oh my gosh, this is so important, and why aren't we talking about this more? And so with that, I went to my principal's office, and his life had been touched personally by suicide too. So he gave me the go ahead to, yes, Chandra, start the conversation and break the silence in the halls, right? And so with that, I contacted my friends at the Youth Suicide Prevention Coalition. We had lunch. I gave them all these ideas. I wanted to have, the walk, and I wanted to go in classrooms and talk to kids, and wanted to have the first ever mental health community forum and bring parents in and all the resources in the community. And so that's really how the walk started.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
And we're 10 years in, and I can't believe it.
Oh, and just normalizing the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so hard to talk about? Like, if you had to define why?
Well, I just think death is hard to talk about, right? Like, even as a counselor, I think I can talk about anything, but when it comes to like suicide and death, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It hurts deep. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's a stigma around it, right? Mm-hmm. I still struggle even today, like this last week, with adults in the building that still believe that if you talk about it, you're putting the thought in kids' heads. And they don't want to come to the walk. They don't want to support the walk. Yeah, it's an old way of thinking, and all the research.
Sorry, this is an audio recording, so I just gave you a surprise look. Sorry.
It's so true though. And I remember even over the years, I'll post on the Take Strides Facebook page or my personal page. Hey, everybody, come to Take Strides and support suicide prevention. And I've been so angry over the last couple of years because I can post a silly picture of me or my family on Facebook, and I get 200 likes, and I post, hey, we have a suicide prevention walk that's supporting all the youth in the Tri-Cities. Come, be a trusted adult. Let these kids know they're cared about. And I get maybe like 10 likes. No one even wants to acknowledge it, that they've seen it, because
that's interesting.
I think it's so scary, and the stigma attached to it. Yeah, it's frightening.
Yeah. Do you think your daughter feels that way about it?
I think she did. I mean, I think that society for years has told us that if we just try harder, if we just think more positively, that we'll be fine. And I'm so glad to see that changing, right?
Yes.
As we're realizing that, yes, there is a lot that can be controlled with positive thoughts, right? Like even the therapies, the CBT and DBT, like all of the methods involve changing our thoughts and that. But there is such a component of the chemical makeup of our brains, all the things that we're exposed to in our environments that I think 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, people felt like depression and anxiety was their fault. And so it felt shameful to admit that you were suffering from that. And the language surrounding suicide, where growing up it was talked about that this person committed suicide, that they, we used those words that were so harsh, and talked about how sinful or how dark or how terrible this thing was. And it is terrible, but it's not that person doing something so terrible. It's that person experiencing something so dark that they just don't see another option.
And it's even the body language around it, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to share this super compassionately. So we just moved here from Seattle about 5 years ago, and there was we were at an event with adult leaders and a bunch of teenagers, and I'm prefacing it to say I totally think they were doing what they thought was right and the best they could. But this one presenter couldn't even bring herself to say the word depression. She kind of shrunk, but it was because she was uncomfortable, right? So I'm very compassionate to that, but let's also be honest about it. So to not even be able to say the word depression, but her body language kind of shrunk in and on itself, and she talked about in a hushed tone, when you get really sad. And I watched that and I thought, we just told all of the youth in this room that depression is shameful, that it should be whispered about, and anyway. But I do think that's changing, and I have a lot of compassion that was the world they grew up in. And so, anyway, but I love your Take Strides. What a great, brave way every year to just remind, hey, we can talk about this and normalize talking about this. Have you seen an adjustment or things getting better? Hopefully
in what
more.
Sense?
Well, I guess I don't know. I guess in that people are willing to talk about it or willing to show up.
Yeah, when we first started, it was just a Richland School District walk. So I said, I have this plan.
Did it always start out at Friend Rish?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
sorry, I interrupted you.
Since the inception, yes, it
okay,
did.
Go ahead.
But when I brought in YSPC, so I brought them in to train our staff at Richland and Hanford. So I brought some of the Hanford staff into it. I said, hey, I'm going to do this at Richland High School. Let's duplicate it at Hanford. Why wouldn't we, right? These kids live just a couple miles down the road from us. And so we brought them in. We trained the staff around suicide prevention. Then YSPC and the counseling staff went into all the classrooms at Richland. I can't remember if they did it at Hanford or not. They had a spirit week with us. We did the first ever mental health forum. So what that was I invited parents to come in and have a conversation with our professionals in the community to talk, have these hard conversations and to get the resources they needed to help their kids. And I remember I had the library full of all these resources, and 2 parents came that night. And it was because they were scared that someone was going to see them walking in there and might know that their student was suffering with depression or maybe suicidal ideation. I mean, I know that was it. It was the stigma that was attached, but I'll tell you, we had the most candid conversation that night, and it was just so impactful, even with those couple parents in there and the community resources we had. So I'm excited, for the event that's going on tonight in Richland, just that we're opening it up and more people are coming and we're starting the conversation. And so,
yes,
yeah, that's all. That's
yeah,
awesome.
and actually, this podcast will come out after that event happens, which is a shame, but maybe it'll happen again next year, right? And so,
absolutely.
So we'll totally talk about it again. But yeah, that one's called Real Talk. It's a mental health summit for teens and their parents, and they're going to have breakout rooms and different professionals with different topics tailored towards the teens and towards the parents, and hopefully each room is a safe space to say whatever you need to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Going back to your original question.
Please.
So then we had the Take Strides walk that was the first year. And I probably had a couple hundred people come out, and we just walked around Friend Rish Stadium, and it was mainly just Richland and Hanford for the first couple years. And then again, I was like, why are we just doing this in Richland, Richland and Hanford? There's kids all over the Tri-Cities that need to talk about it. And so invited all the schools in the Tri-Cities. And so progressively it's just gotten bigger and bigger to where now we have probably between 700 and 1,000 people show up. So super proud of that.
I would assume the more that suicide affects families, the more will show.
Yeah.
Which is a horrible reason why. And yet, I don't know, my husband has said that if suicide has not affected your family yet, it just hasn't yet. And I think there's truth in that.
Yeah. I believe so too.
Oh.
Well, and I think the more that suicide does touch families and touch people, the more we get that change in stigma of no, my kid was a good kid. My kid is not doing something bad. And that perspective shifts.
Yes.
And the more we can share those stories, the more we can share, my child survived suicidal ideation. My child survived. And still, people know my kid. People know my kid. And if I can show, this is my kid that bringing that, personalization, I think helps. So sharing stories, I think is so helpful in breaking that stigma and breaking down those walls of shame and concern that, if we say it out loud, it will cause more, because it doesn't.
Right,
I mean,
right.
There's so much research that shows that asking about suicide does not cause an increase of suicide. It actually reduces the number of suicides because you can get help for your child.
Yeah.
You can get help, and it's often a relief to people who are having suicidal ideation to finally be able to say it out loud or admit it out loud.
I think it's important to also just say that, we have students that are openly, say they're depressed and they're suicidal. Those aren't necessarily the kids that we have in our communities that are dying by suicide.
Right.
There's kids that come from, great loving families that get good grades, that might be AP students, college bound, and they're suffering silently and not talking about it. In my experience when I've been in that first year and talked to it was 2,000 kids at Richland High School and kind of did a little survey with them, the majority of them just said, I don't feel good enough, or it's just so many academic and social pressures that they just don't feel like they can meet those, and there's so much, just so much pressure on them, and they don't feel supported.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm just sitting here nodding because that has been my experience. That it's the kids that you think everything's going right. I'm not saying the others. It's just from my personal experience. And I have been wondering as a mom, did I put too much pressure? Because I think we do as moms, and that's my experience. So that's what I'm talking to. But did I put too much pressure on them to? You're capable of getting an A, so why aren't you getting an A? My kids are high achievers. They are. And I had no idea up until, 4 or 5 years ago, the COVID years, those rough COVID years, how much pressure they were just naturally putting on themselves, and why in the world was I adding to it? And I've completely adjusted how my perspective and how I think as a mom. Toni, I was going back to in my head of something you were saying earlier about parents saying, but my kid's a good kid, or my kid doesn't do that, or whatever. Why do we do that? Why do we attach ourselves in that way? I don't know. And I don't know what the answer is, by the way. I don't know. I'm just learning about myself. I'm trying to detach from doing that.
Right. Yeah, I think suicide doesn't have a type, right? Suicide doesn't have a type.
Yes.
Depression doesn't have a type. It doesn't attack one group over another. There are for sure certain demographics that are more susceptible. Absolutely, research has shown that. But suicide touches every demographic. It touches every socioeconomic status. It touches everyone. And so to try and pin it on one group or one type of kid or one type of student, like you said, is just not accurate. We have to be aware and watching every student. We have to be watching for warning signs in every child. I had never asked someone if they had been considering suicide until a counselor told me I had to ask my daughter that, and it was the hardest thing that ever came out of my mouth. I wanted to throw up the first time I had to say those words. And now it's a conversation we regularly have, even with my younger kids, my middle schoolers, and stuff. We talk about it in our home, and we let them know that if they're struggling, we're here, and we will get them help. We'll do everything we can. And I think every parent feels that, right? No parent is going to say, if they really understood how severely their child was suffering, no parent is just going to dismiss that, right? But we so often just don't know what to watch for, or don't know the questions, or are afraid to ask the hard questions, and so we don't. And then it's too late.
Will you share some of those things to look for that you've learned through Asking is Caring?
Absolutely. Some of the signs we watch for a lot is any change in activity level. So if your student was super involved and suddenly they're withdrawing from activities or things that they've loved, anytime that there's maybe a shift in something they've loved, maybe for example, we watch a lot with my kids at the end of marching band season. Something that has consumed so much of their life for a few months.
And it does.
And it's ended. Yeah, and it does.
And it does.
It could be a sport. It could be a drama production. Any of those things. When that suddenly ends and they have free time, keep an eye on your student. Keep an eye on them. Ask them how they're doing. Process through those changes with them. And then also noticing when they are withdrawing. Changes in friends. Another thing we talk about watching for is like sudden events. And something that happened that was super embarrassing. That's a big trigger for suicide, actually, is something that happened, some embarrassing moment.
But that makes sense because it's all in the family of shame.
Right.
Yeah.
And suddenly they come home and take advantage of something that's at home. So they know where the bottle of ibuprofen is, or they know where the gun is kept in the cabinet or whatever. So we watch for those, encouraging having open conversations so you know what's happening, which is hard with teens, right? Because they don't always want to talk about that. Changes in relationships. Those are things we watch for. Dating relationships and even friend relationships. When things like that are happening, keep an eye on things. Watch extra carefully. Those are kind of those big things that we watch for. Just changes in sleep patterns, changes in eating patterns. All of those things are signs that something is amiss.
Chandra, do you agree? Is there anything you would add to that list, or an experience you've had that backs it up?
No, I was going to say sleeping and eating, isolating. And then I would say sometimes there's not signs, right?
Absolutely.
Like I've had a recent experience with a student at school, and there was a suicide attempt, and I saw her that morning, and it was the same stuff, going on at the house and with her family, and we talked in depth, and there was no tears, there wasn't crying, she didn't say she was depressed, and I asked those questions, and sometimes, it's hard to catch all the signs. But I do, again, go back to what Toni said too, you have to ask the question directly, are you thinking about suicide, or are you thinking about killing yourself? And in my experience, kids will answer you honestly if you ask the question directly.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. One thing I do want to note, even when we don't see the signs, right, it is never a parent's fault.
Oh, I love that you said that. I love
never,
that you said
ever
that. I was sitting here just thinking
fault.
that. Earlier when you had talked about how suicide doesn't have a type, it also doesn't have a type of parent.
Right.
Like, I just truly believe we are all doing the best we can with the tools we've got.
Absolutely.
And there's no type of parent, it's not your fault.
Yeah. I mean, even looking at my experience, my daughter survived, but it wasn't because of anything that I did necessarily. She made multiple attempts. She very well could have succeeded at one of those attempts at suicide in spite of everything I was doing, right? And so it's never a parent's fault. It's never a family's fault. It's never a friend's fault, right? We have to let go of those thoughts, because those are very common thoughts in the wake of a suicide, to say, what could I have done more? How could I have done more? This is my fault.
Those are very human questions to ask.
They are, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're valid questions to ask. We always ask those questions, but we also have to remember that this isn't something we did. This isn't something we caused, or that we could have done more, right? This was a battle that student or that person was battling in their own brain. And no matter what we do, when there are things we can do to help prevent. There are absolutely steps we can put in place. But
don't ignore what we know.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And also, don't blame when it doesn't work, right? And we try and we try and we do everything in our power. And sometimes it still happens. Sometimes suicide still happens.
So we have kind of addressed some of this already, but for someone who's listening right now who is struggling, who is worried about a loved one or themselves, what resources are available locally, nationally, right now to reach out and do? And Chandra, I'm going to go to you on that. If a student comes into your office tomorrow morning and you ask them, are you thinking about suicide? And they say yes, what's the first thing you do?
Well, we talk more.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm always going to talk more about, if they have a plan. And then I'm going to involve our local crisis response, is who I call. And they usually send people over to the school to also interview the students and make safety plans. We give out the number 988. That's our National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
I love that.
And so that's posted all over, and I think that's pretty well known.
Can I interject something about the 988 number that I didn't realize until I was doing Asking and Care is Caring? My assumption about 988 was that it was like calling 911. This person is in crisis. I need help immediately. But the reality is 988 actually connects you with a person who can connect you with resources. It's not, if you can call 988 and say, I'm worried about my friend. What do I do? And they will give you information.
I didn't know that.
It is not a strictly
No.
crisis only, I need immediate help kind of number. It's a number that you can call and get. It connects you automatically to counselors, certified counselors, and they'll talk to you if it's you that's struggling. If you're a parent or a loved one, they'll talk to you about how to help. They will give you information and resources and things that you can do to help. It's not, I had never realized that. I thought it was
I
like,
had no idea.
98, my kid is in crisis, where do I need to get them? But it can be like, hey, my kid said this concerning thing the other day. What do you think? And I wish that I had known that before, because there were a lot of times that I was like, I don't know. When is it bad enough? When is it bad enough that I need more help? When is it bad enough that you need to go inpatient? I don't know. And that's something that 988 can help with.
Oh, I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that.
And 988 will be at the Take Strides Tri-City Suicide Prevention Walk this Wednesday too. So
I love that.
I'm excited to have them there.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. Oh, I apologize. Chandra, I'm going to go back to you. So you keep talking with them.
Yeah, yes.
Connect them with resources.
Yes, connect with resources, and just never, and always obviously bring the parent in too, and then we make sure that we have a safety plan.
That was actually my question, because I understand, I highly respect privacy, and at the same time, I was hoping that the parents would be notified.
Absolutely.
I won't lie.
Yes, of course.
I never know what guidelines are.
Yeah, well, because I can only protect them so much, right?
Oh,
Within
I love
the
it.
confines of the school day, and then they have to go home, right? So yeah, we need to get the parents on board, make sure that they've removed all any way the child could harm themselves, right? So any means to that. Even have them sign a contract sometimes that says, I'm aware that my child is suicidal, expressing suicidal ideation, and I need to take these steps to keep them safe.
I'll bet the contract is helpful to have them realize the severity of it. Oh, those poor parents.
I know.
That's
it hurts my heart every time you have to make that phone call and say, I need you to come here because your child's expressing that they don't want to be alive, and we need to get together.
I would assume that surprises a number of them.
It does.
Oh. Isn't it a bizarre thing to, like, moments like that, the world just shifts. Like, you're no longer in the world you thought you were in.
Right.
It is a bizarre thing to take steps forward as a parent. And yet you do. And yet you do, and you have to, and you absolutely can. But that has been my experience, that's a bizarre door to walk through. Yeah.
I always put myself in that parent's position as I'm talking to them, right? Like if this was me and somebody was calling me, just to try to handle them with care and love, and they're hearing this for the first time. That's really scary, life changing.
Definitely. Oh, I'm so glad they have you. We are going to break up the Take Strides again. You can tell me everything about it.
All the things we've already talked about, right? Is just being there for your child, asking the hard questions, noticing when things are off or don't seem right, and be able to have those open, honest conversations with no.
So, Chandra, I want to ask you, what simple but high impact things can we do as adults and as parents in these teen and youth lives? What can we do to help them in these situations?
So I think just having open, honest conversations with them, being highly involved in your child's life. Like in kindergarten, you were so involved in school and what they're doing and just everything. And I think when we get to high school, I think our kids don't need us as much, but that's so not true. I think they need us just as much or more now when they're in high school and middle school than they did when, they were relying upon us for everything. So stay involved and ask them the questions, the hard questions, and know who their friends are, right? And notice if something just isn't right or doesn't feel right, and just love them and support them no matter what. And they might say things that you don't like or approve of, or, but I don't think you can show them that. You kind of have to have that poker face on, right? Like when your kids are telling you hard things, because if they see that you're disappointed or not approving of something, and they're giving you their whole heart right now, and they're telling you, Mom, I don't feel good, or I'm depressed, or this happened, and I know, and I'm ashamed. I find that the kids that make suicide attempts, sometimes they're like in this excruciating pain, or maybe something bad has happened to them, and they would rather die than admit that something's happened, or that they've done something to disappoint their parents, right? They don't want to live with that.
Right.
And so I think taking their life is easier than dealing with that. And it really, it's just having that conversation, and it's getting that like elephant off their chest, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, they can breathe again and everything's okay. So whatever you need to do to love your kid and support him, I think is
And can I add
crucial.
on that? And whatever you need to do to be able to handle that conversation.
Right.
Kids are so, and I think all kids up until like 30 years old, they are genius at discerning what mom and dad's body language is.
Right.
And boy, our body language says so much, and that's something I've been really, just me personally, working on, hopefully. But when they come to you with something precious, please treat it preciously.
Mm-hmm. One thing we talk about in Asking is Caring is that it's never too late to start building that relationship.
Oh, I love
right?
that.
That it's okay to start building that relationship, even if your relationship is strained, even if your kid is almost 18 and getting ready to leave the house. But we don't start with this question, right? We start by getting to know them. We start by asking and knowing what their favorite food is this week, right? We start asking them about what the cool shoes are that everyone's wearing. Like, find those little things that build connection. Because if they don't feel connection, they won't come to you, right? And so, but it's never too late to start building that connection or repairing a relationship that maybe has been strained. And that doesn't mean it's easy, right? It's not easy, but it's never too late. And it's never too early to start building those safety and connections and asking questions, intense questions, even hard questions. We even ask our elementary school kids, like, what hard things are happening for you, and how did that feel? How could we handle it? Like, we try really hard at our house to talk about our feelings and not being afraid to talk about our feelings, which is not something that comes naturally to myself or my husband. We're not feeling people. We have a bit of neurodivergence in our family, and feelings aren't always easy. But we try really hard to talk feelings and recognize feelings and build a safety around admitting feelings and a safety around quote unquote negative feelings, right? Because so often negative feelings are dismissed or shoved down, and feelings are just feelings. It's what we do with them that's good or bad or whatever, right? But the feelings aren't bad. Like, having emotions isn't bad, even if they're traditionally, negative feelings, negative emotions. But being able to express those negative emotions and learning how to express them in a healthy way.
I love that thought. That's awesome. Chandra, I would love for you to give us any and all details you want about your upcoming Take Strides event.
Okay, I would love to.
Yeah.
So Take Strides Tri-Cities is this Wednesday, September 24th, beginning at 5 o'clock. Tri-City Americans will be there handing out T-shirts. The first 500 students to arrive get a free T-shirt. They also get a free dinner ticket. So we have 4 food vendors coming. We're going to be led by the Richland High School drumline down Lee Boulevard and a police escort closing down the street so we can all make it to John Dan Plaza safely. And once we arrive at John Dan Plaza, there will be music. The kids will get food. There'll be all of our behavioral health vendors there talking about mental health and how important it is, and giving out resources and swag. And then a ton of motivational speakers. I'm hoping Toni will be there to talk about Asking is Caring. And along with that, we have trivia and we have tons of prizes for the kids, and it should just be a really, really good night.
And I heard rumor wear yellow. If you can wear yellow, does
Yes,
that
yes,
hold true?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yellow for suicide prevention, or if you have an old Take Stride shirt. We also, for the first time this year, we had an online store, so the community could order.
Oh, nice.
The new Take Stride shirts. My cousin Nikki George, I gave her all of the previous year's shirts, designs, and I said, do something that encompasses all of this. And so she came up with a really cool design with a bridge, connecting the cities, and established in 2015 for 10 years. And
I love it.
So yeah, I'm super proud of that shirt, and I wish we could just buy shirts for everybody. But at least the first 500 kids will get one, and if we have some left over, then any parents or community members that are there will also receive a shirt.
Oh, I love it. Well, I cannot wait to see it, and I can't wait to drive by and see all the yellow at John Dam Plaza that night. That will be great. And thank you so much for leading such an important event. We are cheering you on.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you wish we would have talked about with this conversation, or anything that I didn't get to or that was in your head?
I'm just thinking, going back to the stigma attached and how hard it is to have this conversation.
Yes.
I asked the question, how many of us would know if someone was having a heart attack, what to do, right? Most of us could raise our hand and say, yeah, we'd know what to do. We'd start CPR and stuff. So more of us need to know what to do if we have a friend or a child that's having a mental health crisis, right? So we need to keep talking and asking the hard questions and removing the stigma around mental health.
And I would add to have a talk with our kids. If you have a friend that is having it and they say, don't tell anybody, please come tell me.
Right.
Please come tell me. That's not helping them.
Yes.
But I think that comes with what you were saying, Toni, of we just need to directly have the hard conversation about it.
So,
and actually now that I said that, I'm going to ask you, is that true? Like what I just said about don't keep it a secret.
Yes, don't keep it a secret. Yeah. A couple years ago, I had it was pre-COVID. I was at home sick one day, and it was either on Today's Show or Good Morning America, but Lady Gaga was on there talking about her, talking about her Born That Way, the Born That Way Foundation. And they were bringing this program called Teen Mental Health First Aid to schools. And I was like, oh
that's
my
a great
gosh,
name.
I need to get Richland High School involved in this program. I was watching her, and she was in schools and stuff. And so I applied that year, and they were just piloting the program. So they selected 20 schools nationwide, and I didn't get selected. And so the next year I applied again, got selected, but the school district just didn't have the funds to support it. So I couldn't do it. But all my friends in behavioral health knows that I'm really passionate about mental health. So the ESD called me and said, Chandra, if we apply for this grant for you, would you do it? And I said, sign me up. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so we got waitlisted in the end of the spring, and then they called us back in August and said, we got it. So they got $1 million grant.
Oh my goodness.
And so we started Teen Mental Health First Aid a couple years in the Richland School District. So we train all 10th graders in the district what to do if you have a friend in crisis that's telling you things like they don't want to live anymore, they want to die, they're going to kill themselves. That these kids are trained just like first aid to know what to do and how to get a trusted adult involved to save their friends' lives.
Oh, I love that.
One thing I will note, another thing I learned through the course of asking is caring. Richland School District actually has a tip line, a mental health tip line, that is completely anonymous. So if students know of a friend who is struggling and don't want to personally be attached to that reporting of that to counselors and things, there's an anonymous tip line at the top of the Richland School District website that students can go on and say, hey, here's my friend, here's what they said, and they'll be contacted and helped.
I had no idea.
And when I go in to teach Teen Mental Health First Aid, I bring up the Richland School District website to show them exactly where it is. So if they don't want to come down and talk to somebody, they can report it.
Oh, I
and
love
a few
that.
years ago, we talked to the mental health team at an Asking is Caring event, and I said, it's not on the mobile app. When you pull up the mobile app, it doesn't show up, and are you sure? And I pulled it up and I showed them, and they were like, and literally the next week it was fixed. So it's on the mobile. Because I was like, kids aren't logging on to the Richland School District website from their Chromebook.
No.
It's got to be on their phone. And they were amazing. The Richland School District has done an amazing job at bringing mental health awareness to the forefront and taking every suggestion that parents have thrown at them and said, hey, this needs to be done better. We need these resources online. We need to know this. Parents need to be able to access this easily, and students. And they've done a really fantastic job of taking our suggestions and implementing them.
Oh,
and that
awesome.
was one of them that I was really happy to see.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Ladies, thank you so much. Chandra, thank you for talking with us today and for leading such an important event. And Toni, thank you so much for sharing your story. To anyone listening, you are not alone. There is hope. If you or someone you love is struggling, all the resources we've already talked about, but again, we will remind about 988. And thank you so much for joining us on this conversation of the bridge.